From UGAsports.com, this is Film Don't Lie Football 101. That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young. And what we're doing in this series is looking at some of the things that Georgia schematically does often, or at least sprinkles in enough that you should know what it is so you can recognize it when Georgia does it again. This episode, we're focusing on the running game, specifically the counter play. Brent, what's a counter?
Does Georgia run counters? Yes, they do.
Oh.
Yes, they very much do. But
I should have asked it that way. Smooth.
But it's one of those. It's basically when you see linemen pull from one side to the other, and there's sort of a couple of different variations. There's all kinds of variations. There's a whole book written by Coach Dan Casey that looks at sort of the ultimate guide to counter. But it's one of those things where when you look at the running game specifically, the running game to me is all about like investing, diversification. And since Matt Luke's hire, that plus Monken coming in, plus some of the other assistants that Georgia has brought in over time, they have brought sort of that diversification back to the running game. And when you can add this as a part of what you do, this is, and now we're going to look at a whole series of all these different things. And one of the things I'm going to note with each one is success rate and explosive play rate. And in terms of counter, it wasn't the most used, but it was this after a 2021 where it was one of the most successful runs for Georgia and had the highest explosive run rate. 2022, not as lowest success rate, fourth best in terms of explosive play rate. This is sort of one of those explosive plays. But basically, this one is out of 12 personnel, guard, H-back, counter. And the key to all of this is sort of three keys. One, the front side. What is the front side doing? Everybody's, in essence, coming down. Head up or inside, almost, and you're trying to get angles to where everybody's coming down. And you always hear about us on Film Don't Lie talk about head and butt. Well, this is counter right, so you want head sort of looking this way, butt to the right, do that. And then what makes this play special in a big-time play is, one, Florida safety in the back end the back end players make terrible decisions, but two, Brock Bowers and then Edwards' ability to just play in a phone booth.
Like Edwards being just a little stout guy, can play really low to the ground. He is one that I've seen on this play. His exaggeration here.
I think he's actually overplayed it, honestly. I would tell him to dial it back a little bit because it's a timing mechanism. I think most offenses that teach some form of step to the side that they're not going. But Bowers here to get into the tight space and basically be the running back, find the hole, and then head up on that filling linebacker. That's what gets you touched. And then you got 24 for Florida who makes a bad choice in terms of fits. And that's when you look at all these run plays, it's how does the defensive fit, and then does someone on the defense screw up that fit? And here they do, and then the backside safety even does, and then you get a touchdown.
And that was on a 2nd and 2 play, so you felt good about getting the first down, even if you don't get the touchdown. That was extra against Missouri.
Here, different personnel. Now it's guard tackle, and what's amazing about this, and some of these ones that we're going to show, is it's not even really blocked overly well. And if your back is patient enough and you get maybe one good block, you're going to have a very good and possibly even explosive play because you don't have to block all of the players because the backside you can in essence leave alone. But this one is guard tackle. Quick from Milton again. Great job of him. And he's kind of been hit.
Georgia will do this thing with the running back too. They'll start on the right side of the quarterback in this case, jump over to the left at the last second.
Yeah, and a lot of that is it's defensive keys, messing with defensive keys, but it's also package plays where you're going to the line and the QB's like, hey, if it's this look, we're going to run zone left. If it's this look, we're going to run counter right. Those sort of things, and the QB is making that decision and that call. But here, like trust completely, he blocks the wrong dude, basically.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, one thing that I think is going to be more difficult for Georgia with counter in the 2023 season is the absence of this down block here from Darnell Washington. Because I don't think Georgia has a tight end that will be doing this, at least as effectively.
And I think that throughout this whole series that we look at, and especially one that we're going to look at, his ability to do what he does, in essence, creates the offense and gives them the opportunity to do those things. Does Oscar Delp fill that role next year or this year? We'll see.
I mean, this is the perfect play to show after that point, because look at what Darnell does here.
And what you've seen is different variations of formation. And now this is, again, guard H. And Bowers being the sort of lead guy here. But they didn't really block this all that well. And you still get an almost explosive play. And if Tate Ratledge is able to keep his balance, like right there, keep his balance and stay inside and keep 36 from getting back into the play, you might have an even bigger play. Again, counter, guard, kick, H or tackle, lead, and you see it consistently. Now, one of the things, like, why do you do this? One, angles. Getting down, like the down block is in essence, it's not the easiest, but it's kind of the easiest to do well blocking football. Other is you can kind of package RPOs with this. 3, you have linemen who can move really well. 4, you have, like you said, Darnell, somebody who can set an edge unlike any other tight end that maybe we've seen in a long time. And then you have somebody like Bowers, who's just, and Fitzpatrick in the past and others, Charlie Warner, who play that role well, running back, i.e. also / lead blocker.
Where Georgia may be losing in blocking from Darnell Washington for 2023, from this play, I'm really excited about 22 here. The patience at running back. Watch his feet as he shuffles. Pretty much from this point, he'll shuffle horizontally side to side, but keep chopping until his blockers get in position on this counter play. When it hit play, and you'll see his feet chop here. 1, 1, 2, go.
And I think a lot of them are taught this, especially with this play, is, all right, let me sell a little bit of a dip inside, because what happens here is, like Owen Pappo for Auburn plays this horribly. So you get that and you get linebackers sucked up into the action. Patience 2, and then accelerate through the hole. I can't say that enough in terms of how you teach running back play. And the good ones that do it.
I'm a conky in motion.
This one is, you get one block. You in essence get one, block. Darnell swallows a guy, so I don't know that I can consider it a block, but you get Bowers' block here, because what's interesting about this is watch Broderick Jones at left tackle here. Watch how he, on the snap, he sort of pops up, because what he's doing is bracing to give a heavy chip down onto the defensive tackle, but the defensive tackle slants away from him. So now he's like, I got nobody to hit. So then he kind of semi-hits a linebacker. Ratledge gets spun around and, kind of hip checks his block here, spun around, boom, hip checks 32, who Broderick has missed. So in essence, you've got a whole bunch of whiff right there, but Bowers makes his one block and you have patient running back, big play.
And Darnell on the edge, because he can block interior, he can block out at the sideline.
And so from the diversification standpoint, think about what we've shown. We've shown Darnell off the ball a little bit, maybe not, but we've shown guard H-back pull. We've shown Darnell blocking down. We've shown Darnell blocking the guy on his head, straight up, head up. This time he arcs, gets an arc release. So now it's ideally sometimes that's a tighter counter, but it ends up being a log where the offensive lineman has to get the outside shoulder of the end, and you get outside.
Well, you mentioned it being tighter. Notice where the ball is here on the left hash and going to the sideline.
Yep. And that but the ability to do different things here, especially with Darnell, and let him arc out, get him on a corner. Now you got a big play.
Oh, now you wonder, how did the counters work in the Marius Mims as he continues to develop and grow?
Think about him. I see them running to his side a lot, right, where he's the down blocking tackle. That's the other. Now this one, how much do we talk about this formation in FDL and what all the great things that you can do with it? You can run the quick toss. You can run the fake. They run the fake toss, and they try to get the ball down the field. They one-on-one at the top of the screen. But here we go counter, and this is one where Milton could have stayed outside a little bit. But this is the other part where this is guard tight end out of a trips bunch to the end of the field or into the boundary, and you're running it back to the field. But one of the things with this is I would rather, from an offensive coordinator perspective, I would rather block an even front, 4 down line, the center not covered anytime. And what you get here is kind of an odd, almost 3-4 look, in essence, from LSU, because look at Broderick Jones at left tackle. He has to block number 11. As opposed to having an angle and blocking down on someone, he has to now almost head up, hit that guy, and get him turned. Darnell makes a decision to sort of pop outside. Willock does a heck of a job there of hitting and then getting that guy turned once the contact happens. Now it's just a matter of follow the guy. But all sorts of variations. We saw 12 personnel, tight end, and then H on opposite sides. You saw it inline tight end. You saw Darnell off the ball out of trips bunch. All about diversification, still running play. But the biggest thing, I think you look at 2021 compared to 2022 was the running back spot of that. And you don't get the explosive plays like you had with Zamir White, who kind of in his senior year really came into his own there. And then also Cook really did a great job as a senior of breaking big plays from that type of run. I think you see more of the explosive plays from that this year out of that personnel package.
And people talk about the death march that Georgia does to ice games because it just has bigger athletes, more depth on the roster. That kind of play is going to be one that, a guy on the front 7 on the other side, you probably don't want to see Brock Bowers throwing his body at you late in the fourth quarter as Georgia just bleeds the clock down, especially with the new clock rules. So counter, Georgia does it pretty frequently. Yes, Georgia runs counter.
Yes, they
confirmed.
do. Yes, they do.
Video. This is Football 101 from Film Don't Lie from UGAsports.com. Brent Rollins, Dayne Young. We'll see you next time.